That random firebat? Well, nice guys in Warhammer is basically unfucking heard of. So, yeah. Nice guys don't exist in Warhammer. Andy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning had to figure something out.
Okay,
like
cool.
a call or something. So we have a question from Peter Quill. In what the hell is this?
Q&A. What?
Well, I got thrown in kind of, so you know.
All right. Yeah.
So it's actually in lore discussion.
Okay.
But it's you got tagged in it, and it's a kind of cool thing. So there are 5 cosmic forces in WoW, right?
Yes.
Holy, Life, Disorder, Necromantic, Shadow Order.
Yes.
In Shadowlands, we have 5 zones that look different than all over Shadowlands zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they all have kind of separate vibe.
Yeah.
They don't look that they were part of one continent.
Yeah.
These zones are the aspects of zones. So what if Zerath Mortis is the center of everything, and each zone in the Shadowlands is part of the respective force of, cosmic forces. For example, Ardenweald is Life, Bastion is Order, Maldraxxus is Necromantic, Revendreth is Shadow, the Maw is Disorder, Oribos is the Shadowlands, right?
Yeah.
However, the Shadowlands then sends each soul to the afterlife it deserves. Okay. So that's why it makes sense why Light went to war with Shadow, which is Revendreth. That's why Disorder, the Maw, attacked Bastion, which is, Order. And all of these zones, in quotes, in Shadowlands, are just patches of each of the cosmic forces. So your thoughts on this thing. I will send you the message link if you want to re-see it in DMs.
So let me just see if I understand the question correctly. Basically, what he's asking or saying is that what if the cosmological forces, of which, and as Apocalypse said, there's 6, by the way, not just 5, but we'll what's one?
That's what's written there. I just read it.
Yeah, fine. I'm just saying there are 6, but so basically you're saying that, or the question is, could each of these realms be tied to one of the cosmological forces? Now, I will say we tried to do this on the Discord before the launch of Shadowlands. Myself and the mods spent, I think me and Apocalypse probably spent so many hours trying to tie the different cosmological forces to the different zones. The issue is it always sort of, it's very flimsy at best, right? You kind of have to shoehorn some of them in there. So, for example, Foul. Foul could either be Maldraxxus or it could be the Maw, right? But at the same time, there's no Foul really in Maldraxxus or in the Maw. So the only link you have there is Chaos. But Chaos in World of Warcraft specifically is Foul, and there's a reason why Foul is Chaos, because Foul is arcane when it breaks down enough. So whenever arcane, when the molecular structure of arcane breaks down enough, it turns into Foul. It becomes unstable. So if you have enough Foul and you can introduce a stabilizing agent, it would actually become Chaos again. That's why it's the opposite of Order. So it's very difficult because almost all of those connections are made very sort of haphazardly. I would argue that it's far more likely that the numbers are important, right? So it feels like the universe is created consistently with this idea of a set number of forces in mind, right? So we have the 6 cosmological forces. We have 6 places within the Shadowlands. Why 6? Why this consistent? Why do these numbers repeat themselves the whole time? So if you look in the Shadowlands, for example, you have Maldraxxus, you have Bastion, you have Ardenweald, and you have Revendreth, right? Then you have the Maw, And then you have the Taint of Secrets, Korthia. Those are 6 places. Then you have the 7th, which is Zereth Mortis. Zereth Mortis, of course, is a collection of the 6. It's a fracture of a fractal of the 6. The 6 come from Zereth Mortis, so the 7th really created the 6. We know that. The brokers say that that's exactly what happened in the Great Beyond. They say that there was 2 forces in the beginning. One of these forces then split into 2, then into 3, then into 5, and ultimately into 6, which became the 6 forces that we know about, which is light, void, order, disorder, death, and life. 6 forces. And then the 7th force, which is the fractal of the 6. Either the 6 made the 7 or the 7th made the 6. But it seems like on both sides. So if you're looking at the Shadowlands and you almost imagine a mirror, right? So it's a mirror universe with the veil splitting this mirror, then it seems like there's a mirroring that happens, and the numbers 6 and 7 is incredibly important to whatever created this. Now, this would lead into maybe the first ones, and I'm currently working on a video about the first ones and what exactly is the first ones in World of Warcraft. It is my estimation that the sepulcher of the first ones is indeed the place where the first ones went to die, but not in the way that we think of death. That's why it's called the sepulcher of the first ones. After the first ones created the machines of creation. So they did not create creation. I know this is going to be very convoluted, so just try to stick with me. They created the machines called the Mortis Realms, right? Or the Zereth Realms. The Zereth Realms are these giant 3D printers that just create. The problem is, what do they create? How do they know what to create? In order to create, they needed, like a 3D printer, they needed a medium. They needed a fuel source in order to create. And this is where the first ones sacrificed themselves. The first ones became the fuel source that these Mortis or Zereth Realms use in order to create. So this is why everything has to happen in numbers of 6 and 7. Because that's exactly how the first ones were. There's either 6 or 7 of them, and they created everything in their image because everything is created by them and of them, so to speak. But I don't know. I don't think we've ever been able to link the different realms in the Shadowlands to a different cosmological force. And we've tried. Believe me, we've tried. Because at the time, we didn't have the Grimoire of the Shadowlands. We only had the Chronicles. And the Chronicles sort of laid out the idea that the cosmological forces are the only cosmological forces. And so we were trying to figure out, how do we link the realms together, right? Like, how do you link these together? Turns out you fucking don't. Because like I said, it's almost consistently you run into issues where they just don't fit. And I don't really know what the answer is there. Andy, do you have anything that you would like to add there?
Not really. I have a very similar view to yours. So, I mean, obviously, because we talked about it so much, it kind of got railed into this direction where at the point we stopped believing in the Chronicles, we kind of disconnected from, Cosmic Force has to be Cosmic Force and always has to remain that way and have representation.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be the case. It can be a result of something else.
Yeah. And yeah, I know. I would argue that it's the only thing that makes the sepulcher of the first ones make sense. You have this Zereth realm that is the 3D printer of the Shadowlands. Everything within the Shadowlands gets created there. And then in this Zereth realm, you have a place called the Sepulchre of the First Ones, and this is the place that Zuval has to go to in order to dominate the universe. But why would the literal cemetery of the First Ones be in the realm that they created, where everything is birthed? Well, perhaps because in order to birth the universe required a fuel source, and they were that fuel source. They were the thing that literally everything is created out of. And that's why Zuval needed that place in order to dominate the universe. Because he needed to dominate the very fuel source that creates everything. Because you can't dominate the universe without dominating the fuel source. So he needed to dominate the First Ones specifically. That sort of is my thoughts on it, at least. I hope that answers the question. It's a difficult one because I can see why it's so tempting to want to connect the cosmological forces to the Shadowlands. But believe me, we've tried, and we keep coming up short because there are just some cosmological forces that find very little place within the Shadowlands, at least not easily. It doesn't just fit in there. You have to sort of forget a couple of things, go, never mind those. Let's just stick to the things that do fit here. And after a while, you go, okay, how many things are we going to exclude in order to make this fit? Because if we're just going to do that, you can fit anything in here, right? But then, of course, you are excluding a bunch of other things. Anyway, still, thank you so much for the question. It's always interesting to think about, especially these sorts of, I love questions like this, and I love sort of discussions like this because it deals with subject matter that we may never have answers to, because this is the sort of stuff that authors oftentimes won't answer. They'll leave it as vague as possible to keep you speculating and thinking and keep you just collecting information. So I love talking about stuff like this. It could literally, in 2 expansions, just change entirely based on new information coming out. So I really appreciate that question.